I knew right then and there that this brother was different. He's a cool brother, smooth brother, very hard worker. But when Tony Dorsett hit the scene, when he came out in '77, that's what the Super Bowl, my recent brother addicted. Everything was about Tony Dorsett. Now, mind you, my reach back then was about, I want to say 5'3", 5'4". He had a work ethic that was out of this world. He's working out and working. The average athlete.
Man, Maurice Pitt.
Little Dorsett, you practice the shit.
That's why we had to chase it.
Skyline Raiders, man.
You had to catch it.
Yeah, real talk.
Superstar type shit. You can't catch them too fast.
Right.
Always remember real, solid, true, grown-ass men don't lie.
I want to talk about a guy by the name of Maurice. I went to school, played football. Little Dorsett.
I actually forget, before all of this insurance stuff, I was really cold in football, man. For real. It's just hard to believe that a little dude like me was as cold as I was, man, for real. You think I'm playing? Ask somebody that played with me. I was so Dorsett cold in high school, and when I was a teenager, I don't even believe it. It's sad that we don't have high school football film of my Dorsett greatness. 43-something years later, I got the video receipts from dudes that knew me when I was a teenager. Even though we don't have the high school football film of my greatness, we've got the video receipts from the old school dudes that played high school football with me and that knew me when I was a teenager on that Dorsett shit. It's crazy, but I spent my teenage years being obsessed with being Dorsett. If it were not for the dudes that played high school football with me and knew me as a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story.
When people don't believe that dreams don't come true, don't tell them about Rudy, tell them about Rashad.
43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie.
Little Dorsett, in practice he was the shit. And telling me wasn't the shit like the goddamn Super Bowl, man. Where that ball run. He deserved playing time like everybody else. You had to catch him. Superstar type shit. You can't catch them too fast. You know, Maurice one of them dudes, man, it was different, but it was good different. You know, that's what I felt about me. I was different, but I was good different. Don't fuck with me and say nothing about me. But that shit up, man. Yes, and Tony Dorsett, every day some goddamn yards in practice.
Grown men don't lie.
You know, in the game, man, I really hate that.
If it wasn't for dudes like this who reminded me
Nigga had to catch your ass.
how Dorsett cold I was in high school, I wouldn't believe that shit.
You put that speed on a nigga ass. She was a damn good dude, man. Damn big heart.
I'm not the most religious person in the world, but I really truly have faith that God can get you really close to your dream and your goal if you don't give up. The summer, going into my junior year of high school football, I met this Muslim brother that stayed in our apartments. And he would tell me about Muhammad Ali's greatness and why Muhammad Ali was great. And you know what he told me? He told me if I learned how to pray like Muhammad Ali, I would become great. He must have been telling the truth, because I got so Dorsett cold in high school that when I graduated with that 1.7 grade point average, I was determined to be accepted to the University of Pittsburgh. The Dorsett School! Walked in the locker room. Coach Fazio told Julius Dawkins to show me around.
His number 33 jersey was retired at his final home game at Pitt Stadium and has been a symbol of greatness ever since.
Them people in that dimension got tired of my black ass stressing.
Wear number 33 because
I still remember the day I got that letter saying I've been accepted after going to a couple of junior colleges to make the grades to be accepted.
And Pitt record.
When I walked in the football locker room and saw Dorsett's locker with that glass over it, I said, damn, man, you done made it to Pitt for real. I still remember the day I flew up there with my transcript. I showed it to the man in the admissions office. Shit, for real. In the summer of '82, 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie. In the summer of '82, everybody used to be up at Pitt Stadium working out. It used to be a supreme honor to get a pass from Dan Marino. I wanted to go to Pitt because of Tony Dorsett. That Dan Marino shit was just something extra.
Nobody threw it like Dan Marino.
Still can't believe I was looking at this dude on TV, and 5 months later I was at Pitt Stadium looking at him.
To cap a third straight 11-1 season, Marino would need to
January 1st, 1982, like everybody in America, I was watching the Sugar Bowl because of Herschel Walker and an unknown quarterback that I've never heard of trying to beat Herschel Walker in the Georgia Bulldogs.
Or we can go for it.
I was on the sideline. I'll never forget. Danny had Gatorade up to his lips and he pulled it away and said,
We're here to win this damn game.
and when Jackie heard that, he went right up in his face. I was right there. And he said, say that again.
We're here to win this damn game. Quote.
It is 4th down for Pitt. 4th and 4.5.
When I landed at Pitt in 1982, every football dude was still talking about that Sugar Bowl. That play put everybody in America on notice that this is the greatest pocket pass in the history of college football. 5 months after that play, I was in Pitt Stadium. One day, Dan Marino asked me, man, how come you never go out for a pass like everybody else? You always want to act like we running a play and me give you a pitch out. I never had a chance to tell him, but I was working on my motherfucking Dorsett breakaway. That's why I never got a pass from Dan Marino, and I always wanted him to give me a pitch out. Wait, hold up, it hit me. People up at Pitt Stadium running routes. I'm the only person up there asking for a pitch out from the greatest pocket passer in the history of pro football, in the history of college football. Man, I done lost my Dorsett rabbit mind. Wow, looking back on this, I'm probably the only person ever turned down a pass from Dan Marino. Cause I wanted to work on my Dorsett breakaway, damn! 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie. 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie. I'm asking any sports writer in the United States to check the facts on this story. Dorsett ain't hard to find. Dan Marino not hard to find. Any of them dudes that played at Pitt not hard to find. Any of them dudes that played high school ball with me not hard to find. And now I'm getting ready to tell you the best part of the Pitt football story. Give me a pitch out. Give me a pitch out. I'm getting ready to tell you the best part of this story. My best friend at Pitt was a dude named Dwight Collins, a parade All-American. As a matter of fact,
was named to the Prep All-American team, the Adidas All-American team, and the Parade All-American
Pennsylvania
team.
was Joe Namath, Dorsett, Dan Marino, and Dwight Collins. Back then, he was Dan Marino's favorite receiver. He really thought he was the shit.
He received the most fanfare of any Whippy player since Tony Dorsett.
Going in the first round. He was scared to race me because he saw my greatness, and I told him he could never beat me
Hall of
because
Famer
he'd be
Dan Marino
smoking
was selected
cigarettes.
in the 1984
He used to
draft
tell me,
as
"Oh,
the
man, I know the
154th player.
Hawk. I know Dorsett." Trust and believe, dudes gonna always test your greatness. It was July 4th weekend, 1982. White said, "Man, you wanna go to the crib with me? Man, at least you can get a meal. You won't be stuck here on the campus." Man, we proceeded to head over to this dude's crib. This dude stopped at a park, man. And I said, "Man, what's up? Why we stopping here?" He said, "Get out the car. I want to see what you're about. You running around this motherfucker like you Dorsett or somebody." And he hauled off and bust me in my motherfucking chest so goddamn hard a regular dude would have folded up, man. I'm in the best motherfucking shape a human being could be in. We must have wrestled and fought for about 30 minutes, and I put his ass in that headlock. Finally, he said, "Enough, Rashad." Well, I believe with that Dorsett shit, man. You a bad little motherfucker, man. Finally, when we made it to his crib, man, he told his brother Frank, "Man, this little dude right here is the shit, man. He getting ready to do something. Watch what I tell you." Then a couple of weeks later, he knocked on my dorm door and said, "Hey, man, I'm finna take you to meet the Hawk." Man, I thought he was bullshit, man. Back in the day when Dorsett played for the Cowboys, I didn't know he used to come home before he went to training camp. When we got to Aliquippa, we pulled up at this little tavern called Dorsett's. When we walked in, Dorsett was sitting at the bar, and they said, "Man, y'all come on over." White already knew Dorsett. I did. It was some dude introducing me to him. And he said, "Man, this Tony." And I said, "Tony? Tony who?" And he said, "Tony Dorsett, man." I said, "I ain't never heard of it." It got so quiet you damn near could hear a pin drop. By that time, Dorsett looked at me like I had shit on me, and he said, "Man, where you from?" And I said, "Dallas, Texas." Damn, everybody started laughing. Then we took a picture. I would give the world to know what that picture is today. Then Dorsett walked me and Dwight back to his car, and I recited his Heisman Trophy speech to him. And he hit me in my rock-hard stomach. And he said, "Man, I want to see if you can do that." 40-some years later, it hit me. Man, I was really Dorsett cold. It's no way Dwight Collins would have took me to meet the Hawk, Tony Dorsett, unless he saw my greatness and thought I was gonna be the next Dorsett. I ran a 4.29 at Pitt Stadium. 40-some years later, I still can't believe I got that close to my dream. My Dorsett greatness was on display for everybody to see. Man, it was some dudes that was thinking that they recruited me to go to Pitt, but I was on financial aid. If I could do that shit over again, I sure would go to those classes I was enrolled in rather than working out, watching all them Dorsett highlights to be great. Grown men don't lie. I thought I was Dorsett for real when I made it all the way to Pitt. 40-some years later, looking back on all of this, all I needed was a good academic advisor to show me the classes that I needed to take to become NCAA academically eligible to touch the field. Them coaches knew me as Maurice Perry, my registered name as a student at Pitt. But I told everybody on the team my name was Rashad. Greatness is something that you can't see, but other people can see it. I was on some Muhammad Ali greatness. The first thing I should have did when I cashed that financial aid check was go buy the books needed for the classes I was enrolled in. But instead, I cashed that financial aid check walking around flashing hundreds, stunned, like telling the brothers on the team like Tim Lewis, when you cold like me, they pay you to come to schools like this. Tim Lewis used to ask me, who paid you to come up here? He's a defensive back coach at Boston College right now. Asked him if this is true. He is one of them ones that got drafted in the first round. I'm sure a lot of dudes just like him was looking over their shoulder trying to figure out who the fuck is this Rashad they done recruited from Dallas, Texas, man, with all this speed. Cause I walked around that motherfucker like I was Dorsett, daring anybody to race me, man. I was in such good shape. One of my second best friend after Dwight College was a dude named Rick Asbury. He started calling me Baby Hulk. Man, I was in such good shape, it felt like I could fly. See, that's the biggest difference between me and the Rudy movie. Them dudes at Notre Dame didn't think Rudy got recruited to Notre Dame. Man, most of them dudes at Pitt, the brothers, thought I was recruited to Pitt, man. I was in such good shape and running around that motherfucker like I was just somebody really getting ready to do something important, man. You feel me? One day, Rick Asbury knocked on my dorm door and he said, Rashad, hey, bro, is you going to any classes, man? Or other than you just walking around this motherfucker working out? 40-some years later, I can't even lie, I didn't hardly go to any classes at all. I just worked out and constantly worked on my speed, and I always had dudes looking over their shoulder being wary. Like Pitt starting running back, a dude named Joe McCall. I used to look at him and I said, man, he taller than me. Goddamn, he ain't faster than me. He used to tell me, Shab, my mama used to always tell me it was gonna be somebody better than you. He never would have said that unless he saw my Dorsett greatness. He didn't do shit in that Cotton Bowl in 1983 running against SMU, so I ended up being right on that part. And God bless my homeboy Chris Dolman. He's no longer here to be able to tell you this is true. But he's a NFL Hall of Famer that played at Pitt on defense. One day, me and Chris Dolman and Rick Asbury was sitting in the lobby of the Towers chopping it up. And I was telling Chris Dolman, shit, man, I might run for 3,000 yards, man. And Chris say, man, Rashad, the only records you gonna be breaking out here, man, Rick Asbury, the record player. Man, Rick Asbury was motherfucking cheerleading for me, man. He said he might. Rashad might do that. Man, I was in such Dorsett cold shape at Pitt. It's unbelievable. I still can't believe I did that shit. This is another good story from 1982. One day, me and Michael Boyd, who was the second or third string running back, was walking down that hill after practicing at Pitt Stadium. When we got halfway back to the Towers, Mike said, man, you with this Dorsett shit, man. He tried to grab me, man. I spin on Mike, and it was like he couldn't even motherfucking grab me, man. I was so quick and so cold. He said, man, Rashad, you a fool with that Dorsett shit, man. You know what's crazy about all this? When I graduated high school, I had a 1.7 grade point average. Probably had the worst grades on my high school football team. And that's the reason that the coaches probably did not let me play a lot. And that is the 99.9% reason we don't have all this great film on what my Dorsett greatness was like in high school. 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie. Hold up. Let's start at the beginning on how I even got to Pitt with a 1.7 grade point average, and we'll go back to the story. I I actually forgot how Dorsett cold I was in high school. To Matt, a high school football buddy, had an autograph signing event that we put together with Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. With the help of Bobby Armstrong. Eric Dickerson, how Dorsett cold I was in high school.
We had to chase his ass around to beat his ass. He talked so much shit. He's still talking. What's your personal opinion? Maurice was fast as shit, but that's why we had to chase him to beat his ass.
I promise you this is a long-ass Facebook movie, but it's about to get so good it's gonna have you locked in. It's real painful
Mr.
putting
Perry,
this out here on social media like
this is amazing.
Grown men don't lie.
It's like
the two reasons I stopped chasing Dorsett.
Movie, TV show.
Man, they locked my daddy away from me. He missed all my Dorsett years in high school and when I tried to walk on at Pitt. And then Eric Dickerson, the coldest breakaway running back I've ever seen, and I'm a Dorsett expert. At this event, I became fast good friends with the dude that made me stop chasing Dorsett. The good Lord works in mysterious ways. Because when I first tried to walk on at Pitt in 1982, I didn't know that poor kids from out of state needed money to go to a big school like this. If I would have known 2 short years later after arriving at Pitt in 1982, my daddy was gonna blow up and be a hip-hop mogul and solve all of my financial aid problems, I would have figured out a way how to stay at Pitt and continue to chase my Dorsett dreams.
Gotta get Mr. Blues and his son, probably Maurice Perry, to do the Maurice Perry, that's Mr. Blues' son. That just the same Justin. He gave us our money to start our magazine. We interviewed Biggie, Craig Mack, and Al Hammond. Started out, we went back, and I'm one of the first cats to freestyle with Andre 3000.
Back then, I would have given anything for my daddy to be able to see how Dorsett cold I was in football. He spent the rest of his life trying to make that shit up to me. Because I would have ended up chasing a racehorse and not Dorsett. When he blew up and became Mr. Blue, he told me, man, let that football shit go. You ain't big as me. Excerpt from a future book. 41 years later, I never would have dreamed that I would become good friends with the dude that made me stop chasing Dorsett.
It was like almost like a human horse, bro. You go back and watch the way he ran.
When Pitt came to town for that Cotton Bowl in '83, I had an opportunity to go back.
I think some people forget just how good they
I kept telling Eric, basketball-sized dudes ain't supposed to be able to run like little dudes. Say it ain't even fair. My 4.29 don't even matter. Man, you crushed my Dorsett dream. It's criminal what Eric Dickerson did 41 years ago against my Pitt Panthers. I was Dorsett Cole in high school. Ask somebody that played with me. I wasn't Eric Dickerson Cole, though.
Eric Dickerson was the most sought-after player in the state. Every college football factory wanted him.
Eric really wanted to go to Oklahoma.
He's an outstanding prospect.
Back in the day, I was a Dorsett expert. Tried to walk on it. I don't know what my mama said to that coach, but he asked me if I wanted to come back to Pitt after the Cotton Bowl.
On their way.
He's so cold, he made me stop chasing Dorsett that day. 43-something years later, I promise you, it's still some kids that hate me with that Dorsett-ass Super Bowl shit every day at football practice. I was wrong for taking my frustrations out on them kids at football practice like that every day, cause some coaches wouldn't let me play. I'm sure a lot of kids feel like, goddamn, you go to school all day, then you gotta come to practice, and it's the goddamn Super Bowl every day at football practice. Oh man, that's too much.
I'm going to quick to run out of bounds like some folk. Let me see. If I eat you,
start running back. I don't think that on social media.
I think you one of them dudes, man, just really need to get his goddamn hell in the shoulder pads in a one game day. it'll change a whole lot of folks' perspective. You know, that hating would have turned to love.
You know what? All them dudes that played football with me at Skyline, that played defense, that's still mad and that's hating what I did, I want you to know I apologize, man. It wasn't fair to take my frustrations out on the starting defense like that. And then I know Mr. Dodd didn't make it any better at turning our football practices into the goddamn Super Bowl every day. Enough is enough. I feel you, man. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
You know, that hating would have turned to love. You know, the hating was only because goddamn they didn't understand.
Well, hell, I had a 1.7 grade point average. If I was the coach, I probably wouldn't let my ass play either.
That's not a bad thing, man.
I probably ran for 3,000 yards taking my frustrations out on them kids like that.
Nothing but love, man.
I need to get emotional talking about my hero, but I still can hear him in my head. I can't believe that I did that shit, man. I made it all the way to Pitt, man. Damn. I love this white man. He came to my football practice every day, man.
But one thing I do tell God, your biggest friend,
every goddamn day it was the Super Bowl.
Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again.
Yeah, I knew I was Dorsett Cole in high school. This man confirmed that shit.
Run up in that hole like that again.
So you're headed back to Houston just as fast as you could drive. I sure miss you, baby. Wish you didn't have to run.
Hey, why did they call me Super Bowl in high school, girl?
Super Bowl game.
Hey, don't say it, sir. Hey, man, your dad was my inspiration, dude.
Million football stories. This is just one. You know what? I can't make this shit up. I almost forgot how Dorsett Cole I was in high school football. It's crazy, but I spent my teenage years being obsessed with being Dorsett. If it were not for the dudes that played high school football with me and knew me as a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story.
Mr. Football, Mr. Maurice Perry, man, it was a pleasure being able to run into you on Facebook.
Simon Pipkin.
Man, after I got off the phone with you and talked to you,
Spruce, 1980 spring football.
One of the toughest cats I've ever played
told
football
Pip
with.
I should have stayed at Spruce.
That you spending the time in the NFL. And I just remember
told me
knowing
I was so Dorsett Cole
together
in high school.
That
I just wanted to take the show on the road
someday
and be a free agent.
That was a surprise to see you not go to the NFL, but
Watching high school football. Who we here watching?
If your high school football buddy
The field is named after this dude.
grows up to be a rich Texas oil man, if a rich Texas oil man's claim to fame,
Well, that's almost
Matt was the best quarterback on our football team.
Maurice was fast as shit, but that's why we had to chase him and beat his ass.
I was Dorsett Cole, but not irredeemable.
You were full of shit.
Matt, how fast was I, man?
You were fast enough that some white boy like me could catch you.
Man, stop playing.
Rich Texas oil men take their claims to fame serious. Back then, the kids got tired of me with that Dorsett shit. I was Dorsett Cole for real. Crazy, but I spent my teenage years being obsessed with being Dorsett. If it were not for the dudes that played high school football with me and knew me as a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story.
When people
Never.
Did you ever believe that you would get hurt?
How are you, Miss Gill? Okay. How was your...
Believe that you would help people, like explaining the rights and what was illegal. Did you ever?
I actually forget before all of this insurance stuff, I was really, really cold in football, man, for real. It's just hard to believe that a little dude like me was as cold as I was, man, for real. You think I'm playing? Ask somebody that played with me.
I used to think it hurt.
You know, I'm a good close friend of Maurice, period. You know, the insurance man that be saying, well, I go, you need your money today, not tomorrow. Pay him and tell you what kind of person he is. I always had confidence, strong confidence. How true his confidence were back then. I remember him seeing him as a freshman at South Oak Cliff. He was in the cafeteria, I believe, and I think it was his first day coming in. We was all standing around and talking, and Maurice walked in the cafeteria. He was always clean. 77, and then when Tony Dorsett went to Super Bowl, I believe in 77, against Denver, and this man had been vaccinated with Tony Dorsett from day one. Good dude, good heart, good soul. But there's something about Tony Dorsett and Maurice, I just can't put my finger on it. Anyway, that's a little story I just want to show you. Maurice was a good assistant. There's something about Tony Dorsett and Maurice. It's vaccinated. I don't know what it is, but it's something about that running back. I guess.
It's crazy, but I spent my teenage years being obsessed with being Dorsett. If it were not for the dudes that played high school football with me and knew me as a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story.
Maurice Perry, unreal and amazing. Unreal and amazing athlete I've ever met. Maurice Perry, I met in Golden Helmets apartment.
Back then, I ran more than the average teenager. I spent a lot of time at Zoom while running, working on my speed, trying to get fast like Dorsett. Back then, I wish I would have worked more on my high school homework than my Dorsett schoolwork, working on my speed to become Dorsett cold in football. You had to know me back then when I was a teenager to know my obsession with Dorsett. Back then, I probably weighed 138 pounds or 140 pounds, soaking wet. I even had bought me a pair of army boots to run in, because I heard that running in army boots can help build your legs up and make you fast. That's when I met this kid, Glenn Hollyfield, that told me he went to Skyline. He saw how hard I ran every day. So he started going up the Zoom walk sometimes to time me in the 40. I remember when we started out at 4 7s, 4 6s, and we eventually got down to 4 5s. I still wasn't Dorsett cold yet.
Maurice approached me one day, playing one Sandlot football. He said, "Hey, I can outrun you in a 40. I replied, "No way." We raced step by step. He beat me. Wow, this little dude is fast. Maurice quoted he was going to Pitt Panthers, Tony Dorsett alma mater. And he made it up there to Pitt. I said, wow, he met Dorsett at Pitt. I was always amazed at Reese. Nothing stopped him. Nothing stopped him from achieving his goals. Nothing and no one. That's what I remember from my childhood days with Reese. He went on to help me on my case with the insurance company later in life. I got paid. I got $16,000 with Maurice Perry's help and advice.
This gentleman
His
knew me
calling is truly helping
when
people.
I was a teenager. A bit Zoom walk on that Dorsett shit. 1978 at South Oak Cliff, I was just an average athlete, lost in a sea of great athletes. With all that running I did up at Zoom Walk to get Dorsett cold and Dorsett fast, I still hadn't got Dorsett cold yet. That light switch hadn't got turned on. Back then, I probably weighed 138 pounds soaking wet, barely maybe even 140 pounds. Back then, yeah, I had a Dorsett rag and a Dorsett swag, but I still didn't have that Dorsett takeoff. That light switch still hadn't got turned on yet. It's crazy, but I spent my teenage years being obsessed with being Dorsett. If it were not for the dudes that played high school football with me and knew me as a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Imagine being a 9th grader, 10th grader in 1978, 1979 at South Oak Cliff High School. Imagine you a teenager in the late 70s.
That is the fake to Logan. Gerald carries the football for the score.
You see dudes on TV playing in college bowl games that went to this school.
I think we've mentioned many turning points in the ball game, but I think Rod Gerald's play is the most contributing factor.
Imagine a high school football coach that's got kids in college, that's got kids in the pros. He's probably gonna be a straight asshole because he knows. Because back then, he had a monopoly on the best black kids that play football in the United States. And imagine the neighborhood that you lived in off of 52nd Street had so many athletic superstars like Michael Carter, Harvey Martin's mother owned a home, the Westbrooks. It was just so many great athletes. Even a cold dude named Barry Hughes, before he transferred to Carter, was knocking down the neighborhood over there around 52nd Street. This boy was so cold, they said a teacher was letting him use her car. What kind of shit is that? But that was 1978, 1979. Wasn't nothing but stars at South Oak Cliff back then. And imagine, your mama let you smoke weed back then cause it's 1978, 1979, cause she couldn't control you. And imagine your 3 best friends back then in 1978, 1979 on 52nd Street was a dude named Michael Amy, a dude named Richard Calhoun, because both of them played football, and a dude named Tyrone who you smoked a lot of goddamn weed with. What if you let your 2 friends that played 10th grade football with you at South Oak Cliff, Michael Amy, Richard Calhoun, come in your crib to lift the weights and the weight set that you bought for Christmas, and they see your shrine to Dorsett? If you was an athletic kid back then and you came in my room to lift my weights and you saw my shrine, the first thing you gonna think is, I'm not gonna let this little motherfucker outwork me. This little motherfucker run more than Forrest Gump before they had a Forrest Gump. Every day he up at Zoom while running. That's what a kid in 1978, 79 would feel like if they came in my room to lift my weights and saw all the posters on the wall and saw my work ethic. Could you believe how much pressure that is for a teenager in the late 70s to be going to a school like South Oak Cliff and to be trying to become Dorsett? You had to work so hard to make that happen. Back then, I worked so hard and ran so much up at Zoom Walk to get Dorsett cold. Only the people that knew me as a teenager would know that. It's crazy, but I spent my teenage years being obsessed with being Dorsett. If it were not for the dudes that played high school football with me and knew me as a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Back then, on that JV football team in 1978, the two best running backs was Michael Tasby, a big dude, and this dude right here, Harvey Sowles. As Harvey, he'll tell you, back then, I was a wannabe Dorsett bench warmer. Looking back on this shit now, I wish I would have worked more on my homework than working on my Dorsett homework speed. Harvey Sowles ended up transferring to Wilma Hutchins. Harvey will tell you everything that I'm telling you is true. He one of my Facebook friends. It's a lot of dudes that played football with me that's Facebook friends, but they be scared to comment on my posts. Grown men don't lie. Back then, South Oak Cliff had some big ass kids that played football. And in 1979, they had the annual spring football game that determines if you're gonna be able to go to the varsity. Grown men don't lie, especially on social media if your shit is real. I'm not gonna lie, I got handled like a rag doll in this spring game. Man, I couldn't block none of these big ass kids.
Outstanding.
And I'll be damned, the stands were full because they had a legendary coach.
Roosevelt, Sergeant Carter than any place I know, probably anywhere in the United States. We just happen to have our share of it. What about
this man is a legendary coach.
Push them hard, or
he's put so many kids
players that are just natural
in college
to pick it up,
and in the pros.
Well, have some of both. And I think
if your ass didn't do good in this spring game, you wasn't gonna graduate to the varsity when fall football started. I did terrible in this game. My name wasn't on that list. By the football locker room when school started of the people that made the varsity.
Considering the kind of success you've had here, I know that.
In the fall of 1979, school started. I went down to the football locker room. I saw that my name was still not on the list of the people that graduated to the varsity. So I asked Coach Jet. I said, Coach Jet, why my name not on the list? I had to beg. I had to plead. I had to beg. I had to plead. He looked at me like I was a little ant. And he said to me, in a very arrogant, asshole type of way, because he knew he had the best fucking kids in the whole United States playing football. He looked at me and he said, he looked down at me like I was a little ant. He was a straight asshole that day.
Son, you listen to me. Now you know you too little to be playing football. Hell, I was scared them kids would go hurt you out there, man. Hell, maybe I ought to get another sport.
I kissed his ass so much and begged him so much that day that if he gave me an opportunity to start on the JV, that this would be an opening door for me to be able to graduate to the varsity. He agreed. What he didn't know is I had got so Dorsett cold over the summer that I couldn't believe it. It turns out that this Muslim brother that stayed in our apartments, that used to talk to me and Richard Calhoun about the Muhammad Ali greatness thing, it started to work. I got so Dorsett cold and fast, I couldn't believe it. That Dorsett light switch finally got turned on. See, what Coach Jet didn't know, over the summer, there was this Muslim brother that lived in our apartments. Me and Richard Calhoun would talk to him often, and more he talked to us, he started telling us about Muhammad Ali's greatness, and he was telling us that if you learn how to pray like Muhammad Ali, you would become great. So I asked him, well, is this just for boxing? He said, no, it's for anything. It can be for football. I said, really? So the more and more I listened to this gentleman, on what he was talking about, I started to kind of believe what he was saying because I started seeing the results. I started getting more faster, more quicker, and it was just unbelievable. Back then, this is so unbelievable, I can't make this up. I really was too little to play, but I was so cold and so fast hitting that hole over the summer. That's what everybody didn't know. That's what Coach Jet didn't know, that I knew. Man, I got Dorsett cold for real. That light switch finally got turned on. Back then, I had got so Dorsett cold. I was like a grown man. I was running a 4-4, playing with little kids and 40. I couldn't believe how Dorsett cold and fast I had gotten over the summer. Coach Jed had made a deal with me. He said if I could start on the JV, once that Dorsett light switch got turned on, varsity. Our first game was against Wilma Hutchins. Do you remember my friend Harvey Siles that played with me at SOC in the 10th grade? He transferred to Wilma Hutchins. Our first game in 1979 was against Wilma Hutchins, and Harvey Siles played in that game. He was standing on the sidelines. Back then, I became Dorsett for real. I wore a towel and my football pins like him. I tried to walk like him. I tried to talk like him. And I was so quick coming out that backfield. It's like a rocket was being shot out of a cannon when they call, "Hey, snap!" I don't have the 1979 JV football team, but I got the JV video testimonial 43-something years later from Harvey Siles because he was standing on the sidelines the day I became Dorsett. Coach Vickers, Anthony Gully, a lot of dudes that played varsity was at that game too. They saw it. See, I had figured out from that spring game the only way I could play football, I can't let nobody touch me. They finally stuck me out there. I said a prayer, and when they called that play, wow, it was like I shot through the hole so quick, it was like I was floating. I ran about 85, 91 yards. I was running so fast, my feet couldn't even keep up. This was the day I became Lil Dorsett for real. Besides Harvey Siles being at the game on the sidelines, Joe Hayes, Coach Vickers, Anthony Gully, a lot of dudes that played varsity was at that game to witness my Dorsett greatness. The next day at school, I was the talk of the school amongst all the football dudes that was at that game that witnessed my greatness. Everybody was saying I looked like Dorsett. I don't have the game film of this game 43-something years later, but I do have the video receipt and I'm finna play it for you right now. I'm asking any sports writer in the United States to check the facts on this story. 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie.
Maurice Pitt. That boy used to run that ball so bad, man. Woo! Made me cry when he fell down and didn't make that touchdown. But I'm still proud of him.
If it wasn't for dudes like this dude right here, Harvey Siles, that saw my greatness when I was a teenager, I wouldn't even believe how Dorsett cold I was, man. In that game right there, if you would have been there that evening to witness my greatness, that was the day I became Lil Dorsett. I became so motherfucking Dorsett cold, I still don't believe that shit. Grown men don't lie. Run that shit back again.
Maurice Pitt. That boy used to run that ball so bad, man. Woo! Made me cry when he fell down and didn't make that touchdown. But I'm still proud of him.
If it wasn't for dudes like this dude right here, Harvey Siles, that that saw my greatness when I was a teenager. I wouldn't even believe how Dorsett cold I was, man. In that game right there, 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie. Back in 1979, on Sox JV football team when I became Little Dorsett, and I saw people cheering for me in the stands that saw my greatness. It seems like my problem started as soon as I walked back to the sideline. Because if I can remember, we were losing, and I told Coach McKinney, man, we're going to lose this game if you don't put me back in there. Man, he grabbed my face mask and said, man, don't you ever let me hear you talk like that again. See, when you got that Muhammad Ali greatness, you're supposed to be humble with it, not arrogant with it. Looking back on it, the next day at school, I was walking in the hall with shades on, so yes, my ego started to blow up a little bit. One of my biggest problems, looking back on it, is that I indulged in marijuana throughout all of my high school years, from the 9th through the 12th grade. Coach McKinney, my JV coach, used to tell me, yeah, Maurice, you done got pretty good since the 10th grade, but you ain't got that goddamn good. After about that 3rd game, even though I was dominating over these kids in practice and I saw he wasn't letting me start, there was a dude on the varsity named Joe Hayes that told me, he said, man, you know what? If I was you, I'd find me a sorry school like Skyline or Sunset. Man, they got too many stars up here at South Oak Cliff. After that 3rd game, I quit and became a free agent. Now I heard through the grapevine that Coach McKinney saw me smoking marijuana up under the shed. So that's another reason we probably clashed often. So I decided to take the Little Dorsett show on the road. I transferred to Spruce just for spring football in 1980. It's sad, but looking back on it, all I needed was a father figure to ground me and scold me and tell me, yes, man, you look like you've gotten pretty good in football, but you need to be more attentive to your homework. In academic studies, if you're serious about taking this to the next level, man, that's my famous daddy, Mr. Blue, a decade and a half later with Heavy D. My famous daddy was truly a hip-hop icon. Man, I sure needed this dude when I was going through my Dorsett years in high school. I ended up talking my mom into moving right across the street from Skyline High School in the summer of 1980.
To have something to take in.
43-something years later.
Be a part of after they graduate. They have some great memories and want to continue those memories.
Most kids go to Skyline for academic opportunities and success.
Hard work, consistency. I was introduced to a lot of strong characters in those teachers. I was introduced.
Many times, young people coming into Skyline, you know, they're
grown men don't lie,
and they don't realize.
I went to Skyline
in the world was Michael Johnson,
just to play football only.
We just had a lot of success stories that these youngsters can draw strength from.
Ohio State University, which has 58,000. But because
most kids that go to Skyline,
to me, it was kind of like a little junior college.
They're interested in getting in a cluster.
I wasn't
learning a trade.
I wasn't intimidated by the classrooms.
I didn't.
And I had learned at Skyline to take advantage.
I only went to Skyline to play football.
The fact
more than just a high school. You know, it was a high school. It was a trade
with
school,
all that this school has to offer.
Aspects. It had,
I went to this school
explore
just to play football.
Math, English, and so.
Pay attention. Let me tell you how I got that 1.7 grade point average. The apartments with the red arrow? Well, I talked my mom into moving in those apartments across the street from Skyline. And about a week before school started, before I walked across the street to register for my classes, I smoked a joint. And that joint had my teenager, adolescent mind thinking, dude, you're up here at Skyline now. They got smart-ass kids here. You better sign up for honors, academic, everything, man. Trigonometry, algebra, chemistry. Everything that smart kids take, you better sign up for that. That's what that marijuana was telling my adolescent teenager mind. And the lady that was registering me for the classes, she said, young man, what are you doing? You haven't even had the prerequisites to the prerequisites to be taking classes like this. I said, I might be a doctor or something. Miss, just sign me up. She said, all right, school start. I can't change this, young man. That's how I got that 1.7 grade point average. I'm in classes with kids getting ready to go to Harvard and shit. They got stuff on the board I've never seen in 4 years of high school. 43-something years later, it's hard for me to believe that I had a dream that actually almost came true. If it wasn't for the dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this story. Grown men don't lie. Looking back on all of this, my life sure would have been different if I wouldn't have smoked that joint before I walked across the street to register for my classes. But once school started and football season started, and some of the coaches started lecturing me about my failing grades, once I saw that those coaches weren't going to let me play, I turned into a little Dorsett demon at football practice every day against those kids. You got grown men that'll tell you they got PTSD, little Dorsett PTSD trauma for the shit I did at football practice against them kids. I actually would have quit playing football if it wasn't for a good old country white man that I loved to death, who was my hero. He convinced me that I was little Dorsett. Get my grades up and go to the University of Pittsburgh and walk on to be Dorsett. This man was so inspired by the way I ran that football like Dorsett, he came to all my football practices. Do you know what a football booger is? To be completely honest with you, I'm really tired of posting about this football stuff. 50 to 60% of the dudes that are great in high school football go on to have stellar college careers. And 50 to 60% of the dudes that are great in college football go on to have stellar pro football careers. A booger is a overbearing man whose words can inspire greatness. First of all, look at me. I'm a little dude. First of all, let me tell you about this legendary man, Keith Dodd, who was a booger that I met my senior year of playing high school football at Skyline High School. Keith Dodd was truly a booger and overbearing and a legendary man. Grown men like this that are built like this can speak words of inspiration into making people great and superstars. Let me tell you about an amazing booger named Keith Dodd. That's an inspiring man. His legend is so legendary he made me think I was Dorsett. Why, it's a lot of stuff out there fake on social media, and I take my head off to any sports writer in the United States that can 100% prove that this Dorsett, Dan Marino, Pitt stuff is not true. Man, I can't make this shit up. Man, I used to be Dorsett Cole in high school. Man, if it wasn't for dudes that knew me when I was a teenager, I wouldn't believe this shit. Cause I'm too little to be Dorsett Cole like that.
Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice.
Boy, that's some good
running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again,
Your
Maurice.
dad there cheering him on like a
Running right there.
motherfucker.
Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice. Boy, that's
Good,
some
man.
good running
Anybody
right
else
there. Run up in that hole like
want to
that
know something
again.
about
Let
my
me
boy
see you do that
Maurice?
again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up
Practice
in that hole like that again.
like
Let me
the
see you do
goddamn
that
Super
again,
Bowl, man.
Maurice.
Where that boy
That's some
run.
good running right there. Run up in that hole like that
Love
again. Let me
practice.
see you do that again.
Fucked over in games, though. Practice, I felt it, man. And get his just due.
Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice. Boy, that's some good
Every play was always to the end zone.
in that
You
hole
can
like
get
that again. Let me see
it. You had to catch it.
Boy, that's some good running
Or
right there.
superstar type shit. You can't catch no too fast. And Maurice one of them dudes, man, it was different, but it was good
Run
different.
up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice. Boy, that's some
But
good
man,
running right there.
it was fun playing with you, man. I just hate we really didn't get a chance to really see what you was really gonna do on that field during game day. But in practice, if they had that shit up, man, we had some Tony Dorsett, Eric Dixon goddamn yards in practice. Just to get a chance to really see it, you know, in the game, man. I really hate that.
Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in that hole like that again. Let me see you do that again, Maurice. Boy, that's some good running right there. Run up in
Man,
that
like we
hole
went
like
to
that
goddamn
again.
Super Bowl in practice. Hell, died there, treating his ass on. He running.
Let me see you do that again.
And he run, every play was always to the end zone. He did with
One day, Mr. Dodd brought a lawn chair to football practice. When I saw him with that lawn chair, he confirmed I was a little Dorsett for real.
One thing I do remember, L. Dodd's dad, the biggest fan, made shit worse. L. Dodd's dad cheering him on like a motherfucker. You know, one of them guys.
I probably ran for 3,000 yards on these kids. A year later, I tried to walk on at Pitt, the Dorsett school. When I look at this photo, I cry because this is the night I won the Super Bowl award. Mr. Dodd cheered louder than anyone at my high school football banquet. This man is truly a Texas high school football legend. I've never heard of anyone that goes to every high school football practice and turn it into the Super Bowl. Yes, I graduated from Skyline, but my high school football journey was so dysfunctional. I played football at 3 other different high schools before Skyline.
My high school football journey began under the legendary DFW Texas African American football coach Reginald Sapples. This was his first coaching job, being the head football coach of James Madison freshman football team. And these are actually photos from his first football scrimmage game against South Oak Cliff in 1977.
My daddy was at that scrimmage game and I started becoming a truancy problem when he locked him away from me. Back then, Coach Samples constantly stayed on my behind about skipping school and smoking weed at school. Back then, I was a wild young man wanting to be so cool, smoking weed every day. I got in so much trouble, my mom ended up making me transfer. Back then, I was a lost soul and a lost child after my daddy got locked away from me. I don't hardly remember going to any classes that first semester, but I always managed to make it to football practice sometimes. Back then, I wasn't even that fast, and I never heard of Tony Dorsett, and I never heard of Eric Dickerson. I used to piss Coach Samples off so bad with my truancy problem and the weed smoking at school that one day he told me, "Boy, you can't run through a wet paper sack." Then the worst possible thing that could happen happened. One of my best friends on the team, Zeke, got killed in a tragic car accident. Then football stopped being fun. Coach Samples did everything he could to hold the morale of these young kids' spirits together. About a month before Zeke lost his life in that tragic car accident, my mom had got 3 tickets to the Dallas Cowboys football game. Me and 2 other friends went to that game. Being at that game changed my life. It gave me a purpose. I still remember it like it was yesterday. Me and 2 high school friends was in the Breezewell, Texas Stadium smoking a joint. We heard the crowd roar and we ran back to our seats. And I saw Tony Dorsett score his first touchdown.
We know he's not that big. We've heard how quick he is. Watch the cut at full speed here. Now he sees the flag.
Looking back on this, I had no idea being at this game would consume my teenage years trying to be Dorsett.
Defensive people have told us he does this in practice, and sometimes they don't touch it, and they come back to the huddle sort of mumbling. Sort of ironic.